Hi, and welcome back to the Dive Line with Jim and Craig. Hi, Craig.
How you doing, Jim?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yep, really good, and looking forward to today's episode.
Yeah, absolutely. So today we've got a new co-host coming in. We've got Scuba Amy. So Scuba Amy has been interacting with us on YouTube and Facebook and things like that, all over our social media. And we thought it'd be a good idea to get her in because she's also a fellow podcaster and YouTuber. So if we bring her in now.
Hello.
Hi, Amy. How are you?
I'm good. How are you both?
Good, good. Thank
Yeah,
you
really
for
good,
coming on as a guest host.
No, I'm excited to be here. Thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited.
Excellent. So obviously, before we get started and bring the guests in, would you like to tell everyone a little bit about yourself and what you've done, really?
Yeah, I'll try and keep it brief because I like to talk too much sometimes. But hi guys, my name's Amy and I have a YouTube channel called Scuba Amy, named after myself obviously, and I have other platforms like Instagram and Facebook. But basically I'm just during this whole lockdown I decided to set up an online profile just to keep that essence of diving alive in my life, because I wasn't able to practically go do it. Originally I was going to set up my channel to be just about dive sites, but I can't go diving anymore, so I thought I've always loved teaching. I'm an instructor, so I thought I'd bring education to the world of the internet. But yeah, I'm happy to be here, and it's really nice having this online platform because it allows you to meet so many people in the industry, and being in lockdown, you kind of, like everything in life, you forget that you're not able to see people, so you get restricted a lot. So it's nice to open up and meet other people. Like, I bet you guys, and hopefully we'll be going diving together soon, which I'm excited about. Back to Norfolk.
Yeah. I mean, it is exactly like you say. It's nice to catch up with people and still talk about diving while we're in lockdown. So cool.
So before we move on to our guests, and thank you for that, Amy, and welcome. But before we move on, I just want to tell you about some fantastic prizes that we've got coming up a little bit later in today's show. And I mean, some really good prizes. We've got speciality dive courses, vouchers from the dive shops. And also Jim and I are going to throw in some polo shirts and some mugs. So when you get to the end of this episode, you'll get all the details of how to win those. So, Jim, I think you want to bring in our guests.
So we've got the Dive Centres joining us today. We've got Simon from Simply Diving in Spain. Hello, Simon.
Hi, Simon.
How's everyone
Simon.
doing?
How you doing? You all right?
Very well.
Jolly good.
You're looking very sun-kissed.
I was thinking the same.
Yeah, we're all looking really pale next to you right now.
Yeah. We've literally just got out the sea about 45 minutes ago.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
I've just come straight from the beach.
Suntanned, and he's been blowing bubbles today. And we're not jealous at all.
Okay, and we've got Louise from Diveworld in Sheffield. Hi,
Good
Louise.
afternoon, everybody. How are you doing?
Yeah, good.
We're doing good.
And we've got Polly from Christal Seas. Hi, Polly.
Hi, Polly.
Hi. Hello again.
Hi. How you doing?
Good to see you.
So before we get into the questions that Craig and Amy are going to put to our guests today, I just wanted you guys to maybe sort of give us a brief introduction into your dive centres, tell everyone a little bit about who you are and what you do. So Simon, would you like to go first?
Yeah, I'd love to. So, my name is Simon. I'm a PADI course director and I'm the owner of Simply Diving here on the Costa del Sol. We've had Simply Diving since 2008, based in Torremolinos near Malaga. And then 5 years ago, we opened a second location in Marbella. So we dive quite a big stretch of coastline because we have the two different dive centres. and different parts of the Costa del Sol. So our dive site stretch about 240 kilometers from a place called Marina del Este, which is up in the province of Granada, and it comes all the way down through Malaga, and then past Marbella and all the way down to Gibraltar, which is of course very famous for its shipwreck diving. And then a little bit beyond that is the southernmost tip of continental Europe, a place called Tarifa, which is just 12 kilometers across the Gibraltar Straits from Morocco, and we have some nice dive sites in Tarifa. So we have lots of different dive sites, and we mainly do courses and leisure diving, fun diving, and we're hoping that we're going to have an okay summer season, although of course we're not so sure what's happening at the moment. So that's a brief introduction to what we do.
Okay, cool. And I've dived every one of those sites that you've just said. So, and they're all fantastic sites. So, Louise, how about you?
Well, good afternoon, everybody. So I'm Louise, and I'm co-owner of Diveworld in Sheffield. Steve's my partner. He's a course director. I'm a master instructor. Diveworld's a 5-star instructor development centre. We've got the two of us working here full time, and then we've got a team of about 30 odd volunteers, about 14, 15 instructors. We've been based in Sheffield for, it'll be 21 years this year. Wow. So we're quite a well-established centre. We organise lots of trips around the UK. We've got some fantastic relationships with local skippers, charters, accommodations. So we really do encourage UK diving. But we also take lots of people abroad, when the airlines are flying anyway. So we do take people to Egypt, we've taken people to the Maldives, we've gone over to the Philippines, Indonesia, places like that. So we've got a very active dive club, and we are very proud to boast our very own mermaids. So we've got a 6-metre deep pool that we use a couple of times a month, and all the free divers come in there, and the mermaids, which are quite spectacular, and the divers love seeing that. You can imagine what the kids do when the mermaids go swimming by. So we've got a variety of things happening and planned for the rest of the year. We just have to see what the lockdown does in terms of easing restrictions for us.
Excellent. Okay, thank you, Louise. And obviously, last but not least, Polly.
Hi, so I'm Polly, owner of Christal Sea Scuba. We're based in Norwich, and we've been running now about 20 years, training lots of divers locally. And again, like Louise, a typical busy UK dive centre, a great mix of training, UK trips around the coastline, lots of foreign holidays normally running. So yeah, a really good mix of local diving, holiday diving, and lots of training. We've got our own on-site swimming pool, so we do a lot of training in-house. We can train evenings, daytimes, weekends. So yeah, spend a lot of time in the water and love it. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, that's great. Thank you. So I'll kick off with the questions then. And Louise, you just mentioned lockdown. My first question is to all of you, is what have you all been up to during lockdown for you, both yourselves and your dive centres? Simon, do you want to go first?
Yeah, thank you, Craig. Well, for a start, I have to admit that we've kind of been enjoying some rest and respite. Spain had one of the strictest lockdowns in Europe. We often half joke about the UK not really understanding what lockdown really means, because compared to here in Spain, I think it was quite different. So we've had extremely strict lockdown. The dive centre was closed very early on. We've been closed for 3 months. We weren't even allowed to open the shop to service kit or to offer any service at all. It was a complete and utter lockdown. But then we've been, using the time wisely, not only just to recharge our batteries, which we often don't get the chance to do, but we have managed to this time. As well as recharge the batteries, we've got to obviously do much more in-depth planning on how we're going to tackle this summer season. Obviously, here in Spain, our business is very seasonal. We have a very high peak in the summer, and then much more a much lower turnout, of course, in the winter season. And it's our summer season, of course, that's been affected. So we've had to plan extremely carefully about how we're going to perhaps streamline our services or update our services. We've also had to spend quite a bit of time on getting up to date with how to operate with the new regulations and the new advice and suggestions from PADI, from Dan, and from our own local authorities in Andalusia and Marbella and Torremolinos. So it's been a challenge, and obviously now we're operating in very different circumstances than all our previous summers, and so we've had to give a lot of thought about how we do that. Obviously, the main aim being that we can still go diving, still offer all our courses, but obviously we need to keep the customers safe, and we need to keep our staff safe as well. So it has been an incredible challenge. I think we're there now. Finally, we've started to offer some courses. Finally, we're out in the water today. We're doing some open water training today, actually in the sea, which was just magnificent to get back in salty water. So we're wondering how it's going to fare from here.
Fantastic.
Excellent. Yeah, and that must be so strange for you, April and May, being able to recharge your batteries is unheard of. Louise, can I ask you the same question?
Well, very similar. Obviously, lockdown came when most of us would have been brushing off the cobwebs, getting the kit ready, starting the new season. So, because of lockdown, we've had a bit of a rest, take our time doing things, but getting down to the nitty-gritty of business, things still have to be done. So my wonderful other half has completely, cleaned everything, painted everything, serviced everything. Fortunately, we've had access to our dive centre to be able to do that, unlike Simon. So Steve's been very busy in the background. And then, of course, PADI have been working furiously in favour of all dive centres to keep us all up to date about changes in how we can survive this crisis and how we can make our businesses succeed post-COVID. And the huge changes some of us are going to have to make. So we've been busy, revamping training schedules, risk assessments, getting in touch with all our customers, giving them the option about what they want to do, when they want to do it, and, informing them of the changes that we have to implement as well. We're looking forward to getting back into the pools. Unfortunately, we have to hire pools because we're in landlocked Sheffield. And sadly, that's been a little bit slow because of the authorities and the councils, and we're waiting for Swim England to give them advice. In terms of training in pools for us, that is coming a little bit slower than we would have hoped, but we have to go with the flow. Everyone's in this together. So we're just putting things in place, looking forward to when we can kickstart.
Excellent. Thank you, Louise. And Polly, to you.
Yeah, again, very, very similar. The first few weeks, we were furiously cleaning everything, servicing everything, thinking naively that we had 3 weeks of lockdown. And obviously here we are 12 weeks later. You can only do so much cleaning. So yeah, everything's absolutely ready to go. Gave us a great chance to work through our to-do list, catch up on everything. But really importantly, what we have tried to do is really stay engaged with all of our customers. Most dive centres have a fantastic dive community who supports them. And we've really worked hard to try and keep everyone engaged through newsletters and Facebook posts and emails to try and keep diving in people's mind and keep people excited, keep people in touch with the underwater world, which I think has worked quite well. Everyone we've spoken to, all the responses we're getting, people are just desperate to get back in the water. And the great thing is, I know that as soon as we can all go diving again, everyone is ready, everyone wants to go. So yeah, similar to Louise, working through all the risk assessments, lots of advice from PADI. They've been really great, really helpful to make sure that we're absolutely on top of everything, ready to go. Shops can open on Monday, which is great, Monday 15th. So yeah, we're ready to go. Dive sites are starting to opening as well. So yeah, there's now light at the end of this rather long 12-week tunnel, which is good.
Excellent. Amy?
Yeah, it's really great to hear all your voices and as PADI professionals and owners and managers of dive centres, it's really nice to hear that you're still succeeding. And I can imagine, like, well, I can't imagine, but how tough it must have been for you guys to, you know, like when it first began up until now. And in saying that, like, now everything's relaxing a little bit more and businesses are opening, including scuba diving centres. I just wanted to know more about, like, we all wanted to know, and what, you know, students would like to know, how you know, what procedures you're putting in place to go along with the new guidelines for dealing with COVID-19 and you know, preventing infection spread and so on. Polly, because I really enjoyed the video when Jim came to visit you and your you know, Christal Sea Scuba, it was amazing. But yeah, what have you been doing to plan?
Yeah, it was great having a video to show some of the steps we've put in place. There has been a lot of advice from the government and PADI, which has really helped, giving you suggestions and ideas and way to do it. So yeah, we hopefully we're on track, and it's a learning curve for everybody. It's a new era for everyone. So we think we've got everything in place, but we're ready to adapt and change if we need to as things unfold.
And Louise, have you got any procedures, like any ideas on what you're going to be doing? Because I know everyone's gagging to open up and get ready, like everyone's ready to get back into diving. So what sort of procedures have you got in place?
Well, I think because we've been in lockdown so long now, some of the procedures aren't particularly novel. So we're going to have a customer base and student base that know that they've got to socially distance, know that they've got to, you know, wash their hands, use hand sanitizer. They're going to expect that, and they're not going to be surprised by it. So we've been doing more or less the same as most people, most businesses. We've obviously got to adapt in terms of how we handle people poolside at open water sites. So the logistics there are working with other people. So when we're on a boat, we're going to have to work with the skippers, the spacing, the numbers. When we're poolside, we're going to have to work with the leisure centres. So there's a lot of liaising going to have to happen between our sort of partners to make sure that we can give a really good enhanced experience. So it's not going to take the fun out of diving, out of learning to dive and going on dive trips. I think the basics, I think most people have got their head round anyway. It's literally when we hit the deck running, is it going to work? I think that's what we've got to do.
Yeah, but you touched, yeah, it was a good point about being, like, everyone is responsible, you know, customers, professionals, and like you said, skippers, like everyone needs to work together and be responsible for, like, the role that they play in getting it up and all, you know, getting up and running again. Simon, what procedures have you got in place? Because you said today you've gone back to the sea and done a course in open water, which is cool.
Yeah, I mean, we're lucky enough to have already kind of got going on a very low-key basis, what we're normally used to, and we're opening slowly and very carefully, because obviously we're still testing the waters. I mean, Louise made a brilliant point there, is that we have a lot of important procedures and stuff that we have to follow now. It's really important that we've got to make sure that diving is still as fun as it always was, and that people aren't coming to dive centres nervous about, I mean, people are nervous when they start the diving courses as it is. We've got to make sure they're not have this kind of these added worries that might perhaps put them off diving even more. So what we did a couple of weeks ago, we did a big trial run with the staff, and we had all our strict procedures in place with our masks and our gloves. It's still a legal requirement in Spain now that you have to wear a mask in public. So anyone coming into the dive centre has to have a mask on, and obviously me and the staff have to have masks on. We have to have masks on while we're preparing equipment, while I'm cleaning the boat, while we're doing everything. We have to have masks on. It can be quite restrictive, but we did our trial run with the staff. We did a full day of diving with just the staff and a couple of selected guests, and we realised how tricky it could be. I mean, there's a lot of extra obstacles to doing what we normally do. I mean, we're in a business where we have a lot of contact with people, a lot of contact with each other's equipment. We're in very close spaces together. You know, we don't work in a retail shop. I mean, we work in diving. You know, we're a hands-on industry. So we gave it a try. We realised that it was quite tricky, but we got through it, and we realised it could be manageable. And then today, of course, now that we open and that we're doing live, real courses, extra things come up that perhaps we didn't even think about. So we've had to, you know, make some adjustments to our risk assessments that we did. We had to make little adjustments, and I think that's going to be going on for probably several weeks. We don't know, but we're going to have to do these little adjustments as and when we come across them. The only other thing, though, as well, is that I was going to mention is that we've been quite surprised here at Simply Diving about actually how relaxed people have been. You know, we publicised our trial run, our procedures, and all the things that we were doing. We publicised it quite a lot to make sure that our divers knew that we were being very strict with disinfecting equipment in the dive centre and disinfecting ourselves and our hands and things like this. But actually, what we found is that people just want to go back to diving, and people are really quite relaxed. I don't know if that's because we hope maybe they're coming to Simply Diving with an expectancy that we're doing things properly. I like to think that's maybe a part of it, but also I think people are just desperate to get back in the water. And really their main question is, when can I go diving? Which is fantastic.
Yeah, maybe the idea, like, we've waited so long, all irrationality goes out of, you know, a scuba diver's head, and they just want to go.
People have just been locked up and they just miss the bubbles, they miss the water, they miss getting wet, and they're just...
Well, myself and Craig have been diving in 3 meters of water in an old mill pond because we're desperate to get in the water.
Yeah, well, I don't mean to make you jealous, Jim, but today in the water, I forgot to check the temperature. I didn't actually bother looking.
That's the sign, isn't it? When you're in cold water, when you have to check what is the temperature today? You don't think to do that when you.
To be honest, guys, you don't want to listen to anything Simon says about the struggles in lockdown. I've seen those photos.
I'm still in a semi-dry today. I'm still in a semi-dry.
You know, though, Simon, I think people are relaxed because they know, like, diving is such a professional industry, and as you said, you put loads of guidelines on. You know, you're letting your customers know that you're taking it seriously, so they have confidence in you. I think it's that, because, you know, I'm only going to go with the dive centre I feel confident with.
Yeah, that's what I mean. PADI have obviously done a lot of mail outs to divers, specifically to their emails, to PADI divers, a lot on Facebook, a lot on social media about the advice and the new standards. And I think a lot of dive centres, I think Louise and Polly will say the same. You know, they've put out a lot of messages about the new measures that they're taking, and hopefully that is spilling over into the dive community, and they do have a lot of confidence in us.
Guys, do you think that diving activities will look very different in the future? Simon, if you want to carry on with that first.
Do you mean just general diving, or perhaps dive training, or?
Yeah, I mean, for everybody, that obviously you've got new procedures in place, but also, you know, if you use ribs, you've got to have less people. If you're in a hard boat, you've got to be different. But I'm thinking also in the whole way the industry is going to train students, and diving's a contact sport. You get close to people, and obviously new procedures have to be put in place to keep social distancing. Will all of the whole spectrum of diving activities look very different in the future now?
Well, I'm hoping it won't change too much, because I think as an industry we got a lot of things right. We were doing a lot of things correctly, which is why diving is such a growing sport and it's just so popular, and especially in the UK where you have, you know, fanatics, as we do across Europe and here in Spain. I mean, in terms of us, we have a rig boat that now we have to obviously limit, can only be at the moment 50% capacity. We're in what's called phase 3. I'm sorry, I don't know in the UK if you have these phases, but we've moved from phase 1 to and now in phase 3 here in Andalusia. I'm not sure that if we move on to phase 4 or whatever in the rest of the summer that we can increase our capacity. Like for example, a restaurant is allowed to increase their capacity now we've still got to keep 50% capacity. So this is obviously, you know, going to affect how we operate a lot. You know, do we have to offer more boat dives during a day to, you know, get as many dives as we can through the door before? Obviously, you know, like all dive centres, we have bills to pay. Even though we enjoy our job, we are doing it. It is our job, and we're doing it to pay our rent and put food on our table. So we've got to make some important decisions about how we can maintain our standard of service and safety, but also, you know, operate to capacity or near capacity. So there's a lot to think about there. In terms of dive training, we found today doing our open water, it's the first open water courses we've done since before the lockdown. And yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of different measures that you have to take. I mean, normally when you're getting in the water for the first time with somebody, we had a particularly nervous student today. You have to be extremely close to them. And I'm always teaching this on my IDCs that, you know, instructors have to be extremely close, within touching distance of their students at all time, because you never know in a split second when you have to offer assistance. And obviously this is different. So, you know, ensuring that the staff and the students always have masks on and regulators in. They're only allowed to take their regulator out if they really have an important question to ask. And of course, you know, sometimes you're controlling people in the water as well. You know, they're not so comfortable on the surface the first time in a BCD, for example. And so they have like control issues, which you have to help with, and you have to get hands-on. So, you know, it's, there's a lot of new stuff to think about. It's manageable, but certainly a lot more to think about than we had before.
Yeah, certainly. Louise, will things look very different for you?
I'm inclined to agree with Simon that hopefully not too drastically different. We have to make changes and adapt to the situation we all find ourselves in. And as Simon rightly says there, when you're with a student who's nervous, you do have to get pretty close. But the stuff topside surface, you can socially distance, but you can still deliver a fantastic training experience for your students. I think when you go beyond training and you're on boats and the reduced numbers and things, I think the positive slant on this is the enhanced experience you can give your customers and your students. If there's a slightly smaller group, that means maybe a little bit more space, a little bit more comfort, a lot less noise, a lot less nerves. So you've got to put the positive slant on all this. Now, luckily last year we had people approach us and saying, we want to go in twos, we want to go just a family of 4. So we started doing bespoke training. We'd go up to the quarries midweek, we'd make more visits, and I think that's going to become part of a new flexible business model, because so many people have got used to being flexible at working from home, working different days. If people don't bombard the quarries and the boat skippers at weekends and start making midweek trips in smaller groups, you can enhance that experience and make it more positive. And the flip side of that is, you know, there's a supply chain. Keep the skippers going, smaller groups, yeah, you might pay an extra tenner a head, but that will also keep the accommodation going, it'll keep the local pub going, it'll keep the local cafe going, the airfills going. And so spread out over a period of time, looking at, you know, the quality of the experience, it might help us all recover a little bit better.
Yeah, that's really interesting. It's going to be a question of finding out what the new norm is for everybody. Polly, is it going to look much different for diving activities for you in the future?
Yeah, I mean, as Louise has been saying, we're looking at running much smaller groups, doing a lot more stuff midweek, and we've got a lot of family groups training at the moment, which is great. So obviously family groups will be a lovely training unit. So yeah, we're going to try and run much smaller groups, private groups, do stuff midweek. Yeah, just spread things out, and like Simon and Louise were saying, it's going to take a lot more planning. So you'll need to really plan ahead before you get anywhere near the water. Really think every step of that dive through to make sure that you've got everything in place that you need. And diving is normally very hands-on, so it's making sure we're doing it safely. You know, as we've said before, it's great once you've got your mask on and your regulator in, you're pretty well protected. You've got pretty good PPE in place. So that's an advantage that will really help. But yes, there's a lot to think about. What would be great, it might encourage more families to start diving together, because it is a great, as we all know, it's a great family activity to do, and something for a group, a couple, a family to do. Great, fantastic.
Excellent. Amy?
Yeah, following on from what you're saying, really, Polly, because now obviously things are changing in terms of, usually we're going on holiday a lot, and with this lockdown, it has put a restriction on movement around the world. Even when we're starting to come out of it, flights are not, such a priority for people anymore, and they're looking more to, local activities to do, or local diving adventures, which is what I'm looking into doing right now. So do you think, Polly, that you're going to get more local divers? Do you think you're going to have an increase in that? I know the UK is very as a dive centre in the UK, you do, the majority of your customers are local based, but do you think you're going to get an even more increase, or do you think that's going to change, going on what you're saying about families?
Yeah, we've already had email inquiries from people living in Norfolk who normally only ever dive abroad, and of course they can't go on holiday at the moment, so they've been inquiring about what dives can we offer locally, and doing their dry suit training, getting involved in UK diving, which is great. We're lucky, it's coming up to the summer season. Certainly for the shallow dives, you can wear a thick wetsuit. The water does get to about 17, 18 degrees. So if people don't want to do dry suit, they don't have to. Most of us, I wear my dry suit all year round. We have to do great dry suit training. And we're lucky here. We've got some great little dives right off the Norfolk coast that we can do as shore dives. They're great little beginner dives. They're about 8 metres deep. A couple of shipwrecks. We've got some short reef. So there's some really nice sites for people to explore. But as people can't go away on holiday, at least they can still go diving. As we all know, there's some great diving around the UK, and we're lucky we've got some right on our doorstep off the Norfolk coast. Yeah,
I think we in the UK we forget that there's actually places to go diving, and maybe it's this time it's lockdown has allowed people to open their eyes a little bit more and go a little bit more local. And do you reckon it's the same for you, Louise? Have you had any emails or an increase in interest?
Fortunately, we do promote a lot of UK diving. We do a lot of trips. We go up on a Friday, dive Saturday and Sunday, and come back. Sometimes we extend them. So, we literally do probably about 5 or 6 trips around the UK a year, and then factor in a couple of foreign trips. So we've got Paul up at St. Tabs, we've got Billy in the Farns, we've got James and Ben in Indeep, we've got Malcolm at Loch Allen. We go all over the place. So our guys are itching, because I think they're going to be a little bit reticent for the rest of this year at least about jumping on planes, and about what countries will allow them to travel without having to come back and spend 2 weeks in quarantine. So again, putting the positive slant on promoting UK diving, couldn't be a better time, really. And UK diving is fantastic. It's absolutely amazing. Just hope that the weather stays as good as it was during lockdown, and it would be good.
Yeah, I hope so as well. The sun seems to be coming back out, hopefully. And I guess for you, Simon, you're in a different country to us. Are you nervous, because the tourist industry? Are most of your customers tourist based, or are you looking at more local people now coming to dive with your centre?
Yeah, obviously a massive majority of our customers are from outside Spain. At the moment, obviously. It's going to be very tricky how our summer goes, because obviously one of the biggest markets here on the Costa del Sol is from the UK, and because the UK is in a unique position, without wanting to get political or into any argument about how lockdowns were managed, but the UK is in a very unique position compared to the rest of Europe. But we are lucky in the fact that on the Costa del Sol we also have very big numbers from Germany and France, and also the Nordic countries like Norway, particularly Norway, Denmark, Sweden and Finland. and our borders are opening to all these countries very, very soon. And so we're hoping that, we are going to have, although we're not going to have be able to welcome as many as our UK divers as we want to, then we do have the rest of Europe, which is great. People do flock down to the south of Spain because we're kind of guaranteed sunshine, which is very nice. And then we're also opening up to the local market as well. We're going to have some particularly Spanish-speaking staff. We've spoken many languages the previous summers, but obviously we're putting more an emphasis on speaking Spanish. We've got a few local sixth form colleges and schools that we've never worked with before who are interested in offering diving to their own students and parents and things like that, which is going to be quite exciting. So it's definitely quite a big change for us on the horizon, which is mainly a positive one, I hope, despite not being able to.
Definitely. That's what I mean. I mean, you can't dwell on like it has been really difficult for businesses. But maybe it's been like a blessing in disguise, and it's allowed you to think, oh, what else can I do in my business? Like, how can we adapt? How can we progress in a different avenue? And I think like with the schools, that's a really nice idea, like getting more local and interacting with the locals.
Yeah, definitely positive thing. Absolutely, yeah, totally agree.
Louise, you mentioned about doing international trips, and I know Polly also does a lot of trips abroad. Clearly, they've all had to be cancelled and curtailed for the time being. How have your customers reacted? Are they still keen, or we'll go next year, or what's been the reaction?
Right, so happy to say the only big trip I've had to cancel, I'm still waiting on the others, the jury's still out on that, is had a big trip planned for the end of this month. We were going to go out to Egypt with Unis Divers, and the team there, Lydia and her team, have been absolutely out of the water fantastic. Nobody's lost a penny, nobody's lost a deposit, everyone's got choices, they've moved it. The way those girls were on the ball and shifted everything, it's 11 out of 10, it's been fantastic. We've still got to discuss one or two other trips that I've got planned with them and other people, but they're the back end of this year. So we'll have a look at that. But I think most people are expecting, certainly with the difficulties with airlines and the airline industry, I think most people are expecting things to be, postponed or, just delayed slightly. But I'm happy to say that all my customers are just, happy and satisfied with the service they've got. Been brilliant.
Yeah, I can certainly identify with that. I had a trip that I was supposed to be on, we would have got back last week, and I've been given the option of either December or July, and I've booked both, and I may go and do both, but I've left the deposit with them. Like your customers, we still want to go diving when we can. And Simon, before we carry on, do you actually do any trips away? Because you are away for us. I mean, do you actually take local dives?
That's a good question. Because we're seen as a destination, so our main business is attracting people to Spain, or at least attracting people down to this coast of Spain. And so, we're competing with Malta, with the Canary Islands, Ibiza and Mallorca. And so we've got a lot on our hands trying to attract people to come to the Costa del Sol. So it wouldn't make sense for us personally as a business to promote all these other wonderful dive sites that there are around Spain or Egypt and places like this, because we're really busy trying to promote the Costa del Sol. The Costa del Sol is also a little bit unique compared to Canary Islands and the Malta, which has a really big dive industry, and it's really supported by the local authorities and in the Canary Islands and Malta. Whereas the Costa del Sol is a little bit unique. It's not considered a dive destination alongside these places, so we have our work cut out for us, really. And most of our customers are people that come on holiday to the Costa del Sol with their families, and they perhaps have divers within their family who'll sneak away for a couple of days to do some diving or a course, rather than, although we do have a selection of people that do come specifically to dive with us, that is a smaller part of the business, that people literally come just to dive. It's more people that are already here on the Costa del Sol having a holiday with their families.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And to be honest, that's the answer I guessed you would come back with, and
Yeah.
you're already in the destinations that people from here would organise trips to go to.
My mum says I'm always on holiday. I don't need a holiday because my life is a holiday.
To be honest, Simon, I learned to dive with Simply Diving, didn't I, in Spain with you guys?
Never forget that, Jim.
Yeah. But I mean, you've got some great sites to dive there, and you mentioned them at the start, and I've dived all of those dive sites. I mean, tell for those that haven't been over there and dived with you.
It's quite unique in the fact that I mean, we don't have the year-round beautiful clear blue waters that you might get in Gran Canaria or Tenerife, for example, because we do have very mixed conditions here. We're right at the entrance to the Mediterranean, where the Atlantic becomes the Mediterranean. So we have a lot of very rich currents, which can sometimes bring cooler water, sometimes warmer water. It's a very, very, very big mix. It's very difficult to predict conditions very far in advance. It's quite unpredictable. What we do have, which is quite unique, is that we have a lot of shipwrecks, a lot of reefs, deep diving, shallow diving. And so there's quite nice diversity of sites, I'd say here. Not wanted to compare to other places in Europe, but here we do have quite a bit of diversity.
And the wildlife as well. I mean, you've got some things out there. I mean, I've seen sunfish while I've been diving with you, and you know, we missed out on orcas when we went to Tarifa by a day. We always miss out by a day, don't we? But orcas in Tarifa and turtles. So you do get some fantastic wildlife. I mean, if no one's ever seen a sunfish, oh my God. I mean, they're such an amazing.
Yeah, that's right. That's the holy grail of diving on the Costa del Sol. Is everyone's absolute favourite, the mola mola, the sunfish, or the pez luna, as we call it here in Spain. I mean, the Mediterranean does get knocked quite a bit. I seem to spend quite a bit of my life defending the Mediterranean because, well, I mean, I'm a diver. I could dive in a puddle and be happy. I could dive anywhere. I'm happy, but
I've been diving in a puddle and being happy.
So, as you say, Jim, we do have some nice marine life here. Again, it's not, as we always say, it's not the Maldives. It's the Mediterranean, but there is a good range of life. And we've been increasingly seeing over the last few summers when we go out on our boat trips from Marbella is big giant pods of dolphins, for example. We're not only just seeing them from the boat now, we're actually now seeing them underwater. Just recently, a group of divers, I was sat on the boat as the boat captain, of course, but the group of divers had a pod of dolphins swimming around them on a safety stop. And of course, the guide came up and his GoPro had the battery had run out. So I left him in the sea. I think he's still swimming home. I don't know. I don't know if he's made it.
That's what I mean. So there's amazing things out there. You don't have to go far. Last time I came diving with you was last April. And we were heading out from Marbella, and we even had flamingos flying over our head.
That's right. Yeah, on the doing a migration from Africa.
Simon, I think the Mediterranean is amazing as well. And it's like you have to defend it. But it's like the UK dive scene. It's like you have to defend that as well. But
exactly,
I mean, it just goes down to like you have to dive a location so many times before. Sometimes you got to dive it a few times to see its real beauty. And a lot of people might just go to the Mediterranean for a week, and it might be that week that they have bad visibility or. You know, and in the Mediterranean, a lot of the time you're really having to look for stuff. You know, it's such a beautiful landscape, like the rocky landscape of the Mediterranean, and like the swim throughs and the light. I think is beautiful, but it's because it's not like punchy colours straight away, and that's what you expect when you go diving, and maybe that's why there's always that. You know, got to defend
the UK as well. So we do defend the UK a lot, and we do have fantastic UK diving. I mean, there are so many fantastic UK dive sites like the Farne Islands, like Swanage Pier, and like our Norfolk coast. So, Louise, would you like to defend UK dive sites, because you've obviously been to a few and pro dive?
Wow, absolutely. I mean, I last year, the year before, I think we had 11 trips on, like one a month right throughout the year. But the one trip, whether it's I put on the Maldives or Red Sea a couple of times a year, or if I put somewhere new on it like the Philippines, the one trip that sells out instantly, the most popular trip I've got, is the Farne Islands. You can't beat it. It's my biggest trip. I'll get 40 people on the trip. I'll get non-divers on the trip. everybody wants to play with seals, and the close-up interaction, it's just world class. It's absolutely fantastic. That is my most popular trip.
Land dive sites where we do our training and where you do your training, they're great sites as well. They have so many positives about them, and it isn't all limited viz, and it isn't freezing cold. We wear dry suits. Simon even wears a dry suit in Spain. So, you know.
I take my dry suit to Egypt sometimes.
Only on an IDC, Jim.
Yeah, okay.
There's lots of sitting around.
Yeah, okay.
Sitting around with a flip chart, with a clipboard, you know.
But yeah, I mean, Louise, the training sites, I mean, Stony Cove, Capenway, where you teach, they're great sites, aren't they? So, you know, and
you can't beat them. You can't beat them. I mean, the two sites that you've just mentioned there are the ones that we prefer to use anyway. We tend to use Leicester, Stony Cove in Leicester, for, you know, the more advanced stuff and for the deep stuff. And it's great. It's got the depth, and you know, my other half takes divers down there all the time. There's a lot of pro development down there. Capenway, on the other hand, the advantages, and for me, they're just, you know, absolutely brilliant, is that you've got fantastic topside accommodation, you've got water that you can see, you've got all these fantastic training platforms at different depths, and you've got so many attractions, and you've got changing rooms, and you can buy stuff, and you can get good food. It's a one-stop shop for everything. But there's no weather issues, there's no current issues, you know, you're not going to get blown out. You can go up there any day of the week, you know, any time of the year, and get a good dive, as long as you can brave the cold water.
You're certainly not going to be dependent on any tide or the weather, as you say. And I should say to everybody that's a UK diver that is used to going abroad, don't stop diving. We have fantastic diving. You know, do your dry suit qualification, get in touch with Polly, get in touch with Louise, and do your dry suit qualification and dive in the UK until we can get out and go and see Simon.
You did that really well. You did that really well.
I'll organise a trip out to Spain for you, Simon. I'll bring them out.
Superb.
Without sounding too biased, that is the best dive centre on the Costa del Sol, isn't it, Simon?
Thank you, Jim. I'll pay you 50 quid later.
No, you just owe me a new T-shirt. I've had the same T-shirt now for 7 years. I need a new one.
This one?
Yeah.
You can have this one, Jim.
Okay, thanks. Wash it first. Cool.
So unfortunately, we lost Polly. Her internet has dropped out. Simon, any final things you'd like to tell us about your dive centre, and tell people about the fantastic prize that you've donated?
Yeah, thank you very much, chaps. Well, my final thought is that my fingers and all my toes are crossed for not just Simply Diving, but for the diving industry as a whole across here in Spain and the UK, because a successful dive industry benefits us all. And you know, we're really hoping that divers can get back in the water. We know people are out there itching to get back in the water. It's their hobby. They're passionate about diving, and they've really missed it. And we're hoping that, you know, as many people can get back in the water as quickly but safely as possible. And I hope people know that Simply Diving is here. And at the moment, we're opening not to the same capacity as we have done before. But we're fully open and ready to offer courses in diving for anyone who can make it to us. And rest assured that just like the rest of the diving industry and the dive centres that are joining us here today as well, you know, we're doing absolutely everything we possibly can to allay any fears. And you can be rest assured that, you know, you're coming to a professional place. We're going to look after you and keep you safe. And the final thing is that we wanted to offer a PADI Rec Diver specialty, which is done over a weekend. So it's a Saturday and Sunday. It's 4 dives, manual kit, certification all included. And that would be done on our local wrecks in and around Marbella. We've got some old fishing boats there. We've got a 300-year-old old French naval vessel from the Battle of Marbella of around 1705. Still the remnants of that ship there with cannons and cannonballs. And also possibly a chance to dive on the wrecks of Gibraltar. So it's a great opportunity to get a wreck diver specialty here in Spain. And maybe if you're in July and August, September, you might even be able to do it in a shorty.
Fantastic. We really appreciate that prize, and that is superb. Obviously doesn't include travel or accommodation. That's for whoever wins it to sort, but fantastic prize there. Thank you so much, Simon. Louise, any final thoughts from you? And please tell everyone about the prize that you've donated.
So very much to echo what Simon was saying there, we want to welcome all our customers and our students back. We want to reassure them that we're up and running. We've got all this, correct procedures in place. We're going to keep them as safe as we possibly can. We can't wait to see them all again. We can't wait to see our skippers, meet up with people in the accommodations again, go to the quarries. We want to go back there. We might be going back a little bit more often in smaller groups. So we're hoping for good weather. We're hoping that everyone's going to come back in droves throughout July, August, September and October, and that we can get back to doing what we do really well. We are offering a Enriched Air specialty, so that anyone that is lucky enough to win this prize can do it online. So anybody from anywhere, we're quite happy to encourage someone to do the Enriched Air specialty so that you can take that wherever you go. And also, just recently, we've been appointed as an LCAS provider. So anyone that's either in the services, the armed services, or has just left the armed services, they get learning credits and they can put them towards training courses, and we can provide those courses for them. Other than that, I'd like to wish you all a fantastic ease to lockdown, a fantastic return to the new normal, and I wish you all a lot of prosperity and lots of happy, safe diving.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And that's a great initiative. And Jim and I and Amy too look forward to meeting up with you at Cape and Ray or Stony Cove or somewhere in a wet paddle somewhere. But thank you so much for joining us today.
It's been an absolute pleasure meeting you all.
From Amy, from Jim, and from myself, and from our other guests, thank you very much. Take care. We'll see you soon.
Yeah, thank you, Simon.
Thank you very much for having me, and best of luck to you, Louise.
Yeah,
nice to meet you. Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Nice to meet you.